Good morning. Welcome back to Hero of Leaf Valley. Gonna check the weather like I do at the beginning of every day, and then we're gonna head out for our first day of proper work. Now that we've talked to everyone, some of the part-time jobs will be open, so we're gonna do a few of those. Long loading screen means it's these guys again. So this is another tutorial section, in case you went around and things weren't kind of obvious to you. I put in an annotation to skip ahead if you don't want to watch any of this. Perfectly understandable if you don't. They're not going to say anything I haven't said already. Like what you're doing right now. Right? But not vegetables. That's a slight hint at the wanted items list, but it's not explicit enough for you to really notice it. If you accidentally leave your animals out during the rain, if you quickly put them into the coop or to the barn, they won't get sick. You'll still need to feed them, though. When you buy a cow, it won't be old enough to give milk just yet. The only real benefit to getting a cow pregnant is that the calf will like you more from the start. Now the horse, we actually will not be buying. There's a certain sequence that allows you to actually get a horse for free. And I'll be explaining that once we head over to the farm. By which I mean, let's just turn around. And the loop is stopped. 1 unit of grass counts for 1 unit of fodder. Now that that guff's over, gonna quickly just plant the seeds that I bought yesterday, since I was practically dead when I got home. Hear the dog? Yeah, get used to that. Before you've actually gotten the dog, they bark constantly. The barking sounds like Worf to me, which just reminds me of Vine Sauce. Here I get a little confused by the item selection screen. The same button pulls up the items and the tools, but you need to select with the control stick which menu you want to open. As with every Harvest Moon game, the corn, tomatoes, strawberries, and breadfruit that I'm planting will regrow a few days after each harvest. The potatoes on the end there only grow once. Worf, worf. Fine, some food will shut you up. Maybe. Well, it doesn't matter, I'm leaving. Early during the day, you're always going to see Lewis hanging out outside his house. Possible exceptions are on the days where he's off. In those cases, he's usually just hanging out inside his house, and then he'll actually leave and start exploring the town. And I just catch Gwen. I'll just wait till fall. There's a crap ton of items just hanging around the town. I spend a good chunk of my time foraging. Here I'm just kind of deciding what I should do first. A couple of the part-time jobs start earlier than others. Like, I could cook for the villa, but that one doesn't open up until 10 a.m. While the grocery store, I can do just at 8. And also the same for, I think, cutting wood for Woody. Trying to keep my forage fruits even, that I at least have one of each, even though it doesn't matter, I don't have a refrigerator. So there's no real reason or benefit to hanging onto them right now. It's just less space in my bag. I sell them in the next part. Except for berry berries, I always hang on to a few of those for gifts. Ronald's part-time work is very easy, we just take care of his chickens. And this is how we're going to get the egg that we're going to use to make our own chicken. Ronald's part-time job is also a good example of how the controls and the game's mapping is a little cocked. Putting the feed into the troughs is the easy part. But this game is a little finicky about what it prioritizes when you're going to pick anything up. I should not have picked up that particular chicken, let's just say. The game can prioritize either the chicken or the egg, and it usually goes for the chicken, regardless of if you're looking at the egg or not. I get lucky here, but more often than not, if you don't do what I do, which is stuff all the chickens in the corner, you're gonna have a hell of a time just getting the chickens out of the way, because they like to walk towards the eggs and get in the way, and the game will pick them up first. And here's another problem. The game prioritizes the door, too, not the chicken. So you need to be a good distance away. It gives you a big margin of error for picking up something. Here you can see it heading towards the egg. But plenty of times that margin of error will just cause you to pick up something else, or to do something else rather than pick up what you're trying to pick up. Luckily, once we've done all that, get a decent amount of cash, and we get a free egg, which you can put right into the incubator and get a free chicken. No muss, no fuss. Or if you're just kind of stingy, you could just buy an egg from Ronald for 50 gold. Most part-time jobs have outside job benefits, not just getting extra items afterwards. Taking care of Ronald's chickens is not one of them. Whoop. Like, bother you in the morning. The red herbs don't usually show up every new day. Green herbs typically do, though. Just FYI if you need to pick some extras up. But I'm going to be doing some part-time mining work for Rudolph. Like I said before, this is one job you want to do very early on. The mines will become your best friend when you're getting money together. The mining in this game is very interesting and very unique. In most Harvest Moon games, when you go into the mines, you just get a bunch of rocks. You destroy each of them, a different type of ore or what have you will pop out. But in this game, it's a puzzle, actually. What happens is you break one of the rocks, and it'll release a shockwave, but the rocks will only destroy their own type of rocks, or these golden ones. You cannot hit the golden ones with your own hammer. You can only destroy the others, but you can move the golden ones, and that's the essence of the puzzle. By examining them, you can see what direction and what type of explosion each rock will do. What you really want to do is to line up the gold ones in a certain way, and then hit the first correct rock, and then you can destroy all of them in one go. You don't have to, though, but it saves the most strength, so you want to do it in that way. There's different kinds of puzzles you can get for this room, depending on what day it is. For this one, this is how you do it. I cracked up when I heard that the first time. And yeah, that's all you get for doing it in one shot. And it's some good luck. First bit of modifying ore, first time. But unfortunately, since I'm doing work for Rudolph, he takes all of the ores. Except for mineral crystals, which are quite nice once we've planted seeds in our plot. we can put a mineral crystal on and get a better type of that vegetable. You can't put a crystal on after the crop has started growing, though. Most people aren't specifically looking for that type of vegetable, and you can't actually cook with them. I don't think there's a single recipe that actually calls for mineral vegetables, so just keep that in mind. Most common ore you'll pick up will be scrap metal, but you know what? Don't be too bothered by that. Each piece of scrap ore is worth 10 gold, and sometimes in different seasons, Lewis or Gwen will actually be wanting them in the wanted items, so you can make quite a lot of money off of junk. Other relatively useless ore you'll pick up is coal, which is about the same as junk ore, only it's worth a little bit more. Just FYI, I don't find every ore that we can find in this part of the mines just yet, so we'll be coming back to show off more later. Blue rock is one of the upgrade ores we use for our tools. Believe it or not, gold, copper, and silver ores we do not use for those. I think we only use them for our cooking items. Moonlight stones are used for one side quest, but otherwise you just want to sell them. They're worth 100 each. Also, the camera in the mines is wonky. Once the camera switches angles on you, if you hold down the control stick in that same direction, you'll continue moving that way, and it's a bit disorienting. 510 gold. Even if we didn't get the mines for our own personal use, after doing this 5 times, that much money alone sells its worth early on. One of the downsides of doing this for Ronald, so much of the day passes that if you want to do something else during the day, you're probably not going to have enough time to do it. Most of the shops close between 5 and 6. You might have noticed this passageway in the back. Heading off to the right is actually a hidden fishing spot, and we need to get 20 fish prints from Ponta before that opens up. The left path is the next section of the mines, and those open up naturally in the next season. We get a new area of the mines every season through until the second winter, except for the second spring. We don't get anything new that season. Oh, there's a mole. Yeah, you might see moles around in a couple places. You can't do anything with them. In at least one Harvest Moon game, you could take out your hammer and hurt them with it. Which is mean, but funny. Here you can see, we do get to keep the mineral crystals, which I like. They're also worth a decent amount of money. But generally, they're best kept for giving as gifts, as I'll show in a second, or for using for your crops, even if you can't use the mineral crops for much of anything else. At the very least, mineral crops are highly nutritious, so they're very good for getting your strength back. But there are some delivery requests that ask for those. Later at night, this is where you can find Lila, should you be wooing her. Though currently the thread is voting tooth and nail in favor of the Harvest Goddess. Because you guys don't like me. Also late at night you can find Lewis hanging out in his house. I replayed a very brief bit of Save the Homeland, and this is actually quite an accurate recreation of his house. Although it's much more expanded in this. Mineral crystals make excellent gifts for Lewis. He likes ores, and mineral crystals count as ores. But they're one of the more common ones. People don't like junk ore, so don't give that to them. But mineral crystals are pretty common. And they do count. But his favorite is rare ore, which we haven't seen yet. I just like looking around his house. Lewis is an inventor, and he's kind of a bizarre one. Look, he's got an umbrella antenna, and we don't even know what for. He's a weirdo. Heading into the pub, since I've got some things I can sell to him. Oh, those I can do, no problem. Be sure when you take a delivery request that you see what date is the cutoff point for it. If you know that you can't get those items before the expiration date, don't worry about it. There's no downside to taking a request and not fulfilling it. You don't really want to waste your time worrying about it, in the event that it's not going to go through. For those 3, all of them expire at the end of the month, so I'll have plenty of all of those items long before the expiration. As a forewarning, I have recorded far enough ahead that I have named this chicken something that wasn't suggested by anyone in the thread. But all chickens and animals afterwards will be based on name suggestions from you guys. Heading in here. Yesterday, this area was locked. But this is actually Katie's room. Here you can see they're really emphasizing she's actually quite young. Oh, Japan. Yeah, what is that? Is that a bear? Doesn't really look like one. Or maybe a raccoon. I don't know, that chest patch thing is supposed to mean something. This tree is one of the best examples of how terrible the camera is. If you come from this angle, it will always be obscured by the other tree. And it's just a caterpillar. I still had some seeds left over that I hadn't planned to get. Going ahead and doing that. Not wasting too much of my strength or my stamina. And we're gonna call that one a day. But we have enough time that we can go ahead and do the very next day. This is how most of the Let's Play is gonna go from here on out. Gonna do 2 or maybe even 3 days, depending on the length of each day. Oh, and here come the antagonists of the game, finally. This is one of the few Harvest Moon games with visible antagonists. I like to call these guys Shitty Team Rocket. You've got the lady boss, got the pretty boy off to her side, and the talking animal. And that's not even an insult necessarily, he's got rat teeth. These aren't very likable characters. Alice is another bachelorette. Yeah. Really. And she's also the CEO of Funland. So in Save the Homeland, she was not a character, she is a new one for this. In Save the Homeland, Funland was just this faceless, nebulous non-presence hanging in the background. There was always this overhanging fear that if you didn't save the town, it would ultimately be bulldozed by Funland. But you never saw anyone from Funland, nor did anyone from Funland do anything. In this game, the employees of Funland do something. We actually have faces put to the name. Very punchable faces. Funnily enough, the ugly guy is the likable one. Or at the very least, he's polite. Charles is a complete narcissistic ass. And here is an alternate way that we can save the town, and it's by far the easiest one. All you need is to gather 50,000 gold by the end of the 2nd year. To put that into perspective, in my other save file, I just now reached the beginning of the 2nd year, and I'm almost to 200,000 gold. It's incredibly easy. Obviously, there's multiple ways to save Leaf Valley, and you actually need to do multiple things in order to save it, not just one type of ending. you need at least 3, and I'm going to try to do as many as possible, so these guys really have no chance. Granted, the problem with this, which makes it look more difficult than it actually is that you have to spend money in order to make money. You need to upgrade all your tools, you need to buy animals, feed, seeds. Your funds are constantly fluctuating, which can make it look more daunting than it actually is. But we are slaves to routine, so let's get our plants watered. It's just about neck and neck in voting for the pointy-eared dog and the floppy-eared dog. Also, this is something I haven't pointed out just yet. There's this little area back here where once we get lumber, we can place 3 of them back here, water them every day, and in just a few days they will grow mushrooms. They can be used for cooking, or we can actually gift them to the harvest sprites, and since they love mushrooms so much, they will give us an item that makes fishing easier. Since this is one of Lewis's days off, he just heads out of his house and leaves. He goes all over the mountain. Must have good cardio. The first part-time job we're going to do today is taking care of Bob's animals. He has a bunch of horses and 1 cow. And one of the things we do for the cow is we milk it, and we actually get to keep the milk, which is a good little bit of extra money we can make early on. But of course we have to wait for 8 a.m. It's closed Thursdays, but the part-time job is also not available on rainy days. Only on sunny days does he let the animals out. Yeah, go ahead and give that to him. We'll get more eventually. Here you can see animals count as items more or less in this scene. Find some chicken feed, because we will have a chicken soon. You notice no sheep, which is too bad. And also a horse. 5,000 is a good way out of our price range. But we won't have to worry about that, will we? It's a lot easier to take care of them in real life. So Bob's part-time work, incredibly easy. Can't do anything with a rabbit. But we just go into the pasture, talk to the animals, and brush them. Talking is actually the hard part. This is where some of the controls and the design of the game, the cheapness of the design really becomes the most obvious. If the animals aren't facing a certain direction, like if they don't seem to be on the line of this game's sort of invisible grid, it's very difficult to actually talk to them. Like, look at this horse. If he faced that fence for much longer, I probably wouldn't have been able to talk to it. And you gotta angle yourself really weirdly in order to brush the animals if they're facing a certain way. But this is another thing you guys can vote on. How I get the free horse depends on which of these horses I go for first. So later on, I'm going to be doing more part-time work for Bob, which is required for getting the horse. But when I do that, you guys get to vote which of these horses I take care of first, because that horse will become our free horse. And I've got the small milk. Later on, we can come back, do more part-time work, just for some extra milk if we want for cooking. By that point, we won't really need it for money. And now that I've done everything, I can literally just stand around and get 100 gold for every hour that I'm waiting here. Bob's part-time work, it says that you get 50 gold for every hour of work. That's completely wrong. It's 100 gold. You don't necessarily have to be working, really. One thing I am sad that got taken out of this game that was in Save the Homeland. If we came into the barn, we could grab some fodder and either put it into the animals' pens, or we could actually hang on to it and we would steal the fodder from Bob. It would be in our inventory, and Bob wouldn't say anything about it. Unfortunately, in this game, you don't get to keep it. So I'm just going to be the nice guy and actually feed the animals. Even though they don't need it. It's a shame. But it's practice, I guess. Well, accidentally went through the other door. This is also one of the areas where you'll see the mole just hanging out by the tree. Since I've been in here for 2 hours, that's 200 gold. I wouldn't call it greatness. I've tried brushing your animals. This is one of the hints that he'll eventually be giving us a horse. And also a hint that you need to do part-time work for him before that happens. Checking around the beach. Occasionally you'll find some shells. There's usually not much here, though. The little fancy shell is worth 40 gold, though, so when you see it, no reason not to take it. Gonna be doing some cooking for Martha. The cooking in this game is a bit strange, as I will point out once we actually start. We can also sell food items to her. She buys pretty much any food items. So yeah, if you have extras, just come here and sell them. But for the part-time work for Martha, she wants us to cook certain types of items, and to do that we use the frying pan and the pot that are over in the corner there. The weird thing about this game, frying pans and pots are used to make things that aren't made with frying pans and pots. One of the things she might ask you to make is sandwiches, and that uses the frying pan. Other games got around this by having an option to cook with either a knife or just with your hands. I don't think the devs thought that far ahead for this game. Strawberry jam, that one makes sense though. We could just go over to the pot, she gives us 15 strawberries. Each jar of strawberry jam takes 3 strawberries. If you cook a recipe for her that you haven't cooked yourself, you get that recipe, which is quite nice for later. So this is just gonna be how we're doing it. Put some strawberries, cook, repeat. You actually aren't allowed to throw the thing you cooked. It says I should leave this. So you can't cock it up. If you do cock it up, by which I mean if you make the wrong recipe, or you mess up the recipe and get a failed dish, Martha will still give you 50 gold. But you want to do it correctly for the most money. Also, some of the recipes she asks you to make will have leftover ingredients. Not many, except for one, which is a very nice windfall when it shows up. But in those cases, you also get to keep the extra ingredients, which we can stuff in our refrigerator when that happens. Now today, I am not going to go mining. I barely have any time for that anyway. It's a very small window, you only get until 9 AM to 1 AM. But instead, I'm going to be chopping down trees for Woody. When you go lumber chopping, Woody takes you to this special map, which is made specifically for this. You can't cut down trees in any other area. He gives you his own axe, which is a type of axe we'll be able to get later once we've upgraded ours. It doesn't cost nearly as much strength and wariness as our current axe. The super axe. There's another upgrade of the axe that we'll get after. Also in this area, there are 2 trees with 1 mushroom growing next to them each. And we get to keep those mushrooms when we're done here. Kind of like with Bob's help around the farm, the money that we get for this part-time job is based entirely on how much work we do. You'll notice time isn't progressing, so for every piece of lumber that we pick up from chopping these trees, we get 50 gold. I only really have enough stamina to go for the small ones. Each small one takes 3 hits with the axe. There's a chance you'll get 2 pieces of lumber, but not always guaranteed. And that's all I can do, just 2. You'll see how it really takes a lot out of you. Thankfully, you don't necessarily have to do well in this for it to count towards us unlocking this for our own personal use. This is the other way we can get mushrooms. While I was heading off towards the lake, I just caught Renton. The Funland employees will be walking around the town, so you can catch them and befriend them if you want. Renton is the only one who's polite to you from the start. And you'll notice there's nothing around the Funland offices. No foraging items or anything, just a couple of moles. Alice is the hardest one to find. She only shows up either early during the day for about an hour, at some point during the day for about an hour in her office, or just hanging out outside her office. Also for an hour. Here I have trouble navigating the menu. And since green herbs were so plentiful, I was able to turn in my first request. You immediately get the gold, and when you open up your items, you can see how much you have. Also selling truffle, since that's a wanted item, and I can't really use it for any other thing. Usually after work, you'll see Joe and Woody heading out towards the pub at around 7. It's nice that the characters will go around the island and kind of follow their own schedules. I noticed this path heading out towards the north. That's the horse race track. That area is only open during the horse race days. On days after you've gotten the fruit out of a tree, it'll resort to just dropping bugs. And when I've completely run out of strength, you fall down on your knee and you don't do anything else. Even if you have a little bit of strength left over, unless you have as much as required to use your tools, you can't do anything. Now, I want to actually meet Alice while she's hanging out here. Unfortunately, it's locked and she doesn't come out until 10 p.m. But I'm on an emulator with the fast-forward function. It's like instant video editing. And there she is. She comes out and hangs out here for about an hour almost every day. You are home. You live here now. Whatever, lady. I guess you guys can vote for her as a bachelorette. The Harvest Goddess is so far ahead in that voting, though, I don't know how she's gonna make it. At this point, I realized it would take me a little while to get back home, but if I pressed select and pulled up the map, which is also a good way to find your way around if you're playing early on and get lost. If I press triangle, I immediately head back home and go to bed. Granted, it's not a warp back home, and that's it. You do go to bed, and you do save the game if you want. But if you are done for the day, and you don't want to waste time heading back, that's a very nice function to have. So in the next part, we're going to have our first rainy days. If you noticed earlier on, it said today was going to be rainy, except we had to introduce the Funland company, so it defaulted to sunny again. But we're going to see how doing our farm work and exploring the town and talking to people changes when it's raining. On one hand, it can be quite nice. On the other, it can be quite a pain. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you stick around, and we'll see you next time.